All right, Scott, I'm up here for Audio Advice Live, and I reached out to you and said, hey, since I'm going to be here in Raleigh, are there some cool home theaters that we could check out together? And I know you're a busy man, so I'm grateful that you've invited us into this incredible home theater. Scott, where are we at? What are we looking at? We're going to get some overview of this, and then I want to dive into the story because I think this is going to be a great one.
Yeah, Michael, your viewers are going to love this. What I'd like to do is I'm just going to walk you through just really quickly for a few minutes and give you a lay of land. And then what I want to do is introduce you to the homeowner, Kamal, who is such a pleasure to work with and a great guy, because you've got to hear his story and how incredible it is. So let's do this. Let's just go in and take a look. You'll see there's this entryway as you come in here. These statues, you're going to hear a lot more about these. Kamal's going to talk to you about them, but you can see how well we've lit these things. This is an incredible museum coming into this. And again, you're going to hear more about this directly from the homeowner. Again, one of the things you'll notice, we're big into, we talked about lighting control in some of the videos we've done.
Right.
You'll notice how it's all black here. So
like
it just
that.
looks sleek, works perfect with the wall itself. As you come in, you can see it's designed where we've got 2 rows here, but if you ever want to have another row, boom, you drop right down there.
Right.
One of the things that's unique about this that I'll just tee up before I hand you off to Kamal, when he came to us and he was talking about, hey, I really want to design this thing. You know, we started in the free home theater design tool,
Sure.
where anyone can play around. And we have people all around, we've now had metrics, so people all around the world play around and design.
Right.
And so he had played around in that, and then we eventually created a full 3D design of this room exactly as it was going to be.
Right.
But it was a journey. It was fun working with. But what you'll notice is because he cares so much about getting the exact video and audio that was originally recorded, this is a 16:9 screen, but there's a matte VR in here, and there's some masking in here that's different than how other people do it. Right. And again, I'm not going to take you through all of it because I want Kamal to do that.
Okay.
But you get some sense. There's a bunch of lighting. Make sure you guys cover it all. Thanks for coming, and I'm going to hand you off to Kamal and let you guys rock and roll.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks.
Kamal, it's a pleasure meeting you, man. Thank you so much for inviting me into your gorgeous home. This is a beautiful home, but you got a killer home theater. My audience, you guys love home theaters. This one's spectacular, but Kamal, you've got an incredible story. You've been into movies and home theater for a long time. It goes way back to your family, and so I'm excited to go through that and hear your story.
Michael, it is a pleasure to have you here, and thank you so much for the kind words. I can't wait to show it to you.
Well, let's do it. So to get in this, it's pretty unique. Tell us how we get in here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have very young kids, and so as you know, young kids can be tornadoes.
Yes.
So just to avoid them getting in there without me, there's a fingerprint lock on there. And my wife jokes because it's only my fingerprint that opens it, so it became a
okay.
funny thing for us, but let's see if we can get this to work here. All right, it worked. Oh, that was a lock.
Because we were in there earlier. That's what it is. Usually it's locked.
All right, welcome.
Come on, this is incredible. The first thing we see when we walk in here, we see these beautiful, beautiful statues. These are incredibly lit, but I believe there's probably a story behind each one of these.
There is. And again, Michael, thank you for the kind words. So I grew up in the 80s, and the reason that I became such a movie fanatic and just pop culture nerd is my dad used to distribute movies from the United States back to India, where he's from. So in the 80s, there was a company called Canon, which made the Chuck Norris, Van Damme, Steven Seagal movies.
Yeah.
So I remember like Saturdays with my dad, he'd have these huge VHS screener tapes.
Okay.
He and I would watch it together. My mom would yell at him because they were R-rated movies, but I guess they turned out okay anyway.
Yeah.
So we would watch some movies, and that's how movies became more than just disposable entertainment to me. It takes me back to how I grew up.
Yeah.
I remember discussing the movies with my dad. So just things like values, honor, integrity, standing up for people, doing the right thing. I saw that mirrored on screen, and I'm sure that that affected the person I became. Much more than just sitting on the couch and watching a movie. So it became a very intrinsic and religious experience for me. So as I grew up, and I thought about what I wanted to do in this theater, it was to tell the story. It wasn't necessarily to wow people with technology. or The Sheen. It was really just to show people what movies, what Hollywood, what the experiences that a young child saw
Right.
would mean as an adult.
I love it. So a lot of these I recognize, and so kind of walk us through some of these and the bigger picture there and why that is maybe so important to you and kind of where that came from.
I'd love to do that. So maybe I'll start here with the center.
Okay.
So the first movie I can ever recall watching, I was born in 1982, was Conan the Barbarian, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he by far is my favorite movie star. And so I think about my favorite movie of all time, and that's Terminator 2, because you know, I'm 42 now. I can immediately get transported back to 1991 when I was 9 years old, sitting in a packed theater.
Yeah.
There was like popcorn all over the floor, ice cold Coke, sitting with my parents. And the minute that Arnold came on stage, people were cheering in the crowd. And then, of course, at the end, when he went into the molten steel, everybody cried, including myself.
It's emotional. Yeah.
And so the reason that this is probably my favorite piece in general of this whole collection is it takes me back to being a child.
Yeah.
And as an adult, you know, when you get jobs, you get married, kids, things become serious.
Yeah.
And in this sense, this takes me back to a much simpler and purer part of my life.
Yeah.
And so this right here, this is a Queen Studios bust. This is a company out of China.
So that's the tall one in the back.
That's the tall one in the back.
Okay.
They only made 99 of these.
Wow.
So it's long been sold out. And the interesting thing here, Michael, is that's medical grade silicone.
Okay.
So me being a physician, that's the silicone that you would use for medical procedures.
Interesting, yeah.
So it's that lifelike.
Wow.
That hair that you're seeing there was individually punched fiber by fiber, and it's real human hair.
Wow.
And the eye that you're seeing there is an actual prosthetic eye. What someone might use if they had cancer or they had an accident and they had to replace their eye. So that is the height of realism.
Right.
And it again takes me back to seeing John Connor watching Arnold going into the steel.
Wow.
And so that is by far my favorite piece.
Well, that is super cool, but there's some other great ones in here. Tell us the story behind those.
Yeah. So this one right here, guys, on this lower shelf. So this is Wonder Woman, and it's the actress Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
That is also medical grade silicone and real hair. So the facial likeness to the actress herself is incredible. And I got this from this really great distributor called Comic Concepts, and they were able to get me pieces from places like Korea that I could never get my hands on otherwise.
Nice.
And then here you've got Bruce Lee.
Oh, yeah. Famous Bruce Lee.
My dad used to distribute his movies back to India, so this is a scene out of Game of Death that was filmed incidentally 5 years after he had passed away.
Oh, wow.
Where they stitched different scenes together, but that's his famous tracksuit that Quentin Tarantino later in Kill Bill did a riff on with Uma Thurman.
I remember these guys.
You remember these guys,
I
right?
even had the Nintendo game.
Yeah, they're great, right? So I think it was 1989. This was the first VHS tape I had ever owned, which was the movie. And this is from a studio called Prime One out of Japan. This collective probably weighs about 100 pounds.
Wow.
And every turtle is detailed like you wouldn't believe. And it's interesting because 2024, my kid who's 5 years old, he can pick out every turtle. It's funny how pop culture over time still kind of...
It's kind of timeless.
Progresses, yeah. It's really neat.
And I notice you have some signatures as well.
Yeah, so I have been very involved in the autograph community for the last 8 years or so.
Right.
And so that is a production used Rocky III script. So production used means that someone, whether it was an actor, you know, the director, someone on set used the script when they actually filmed the movie. And then a good friend of mine who works with Mr. Stallone was able to get this signed for me in gold, which matches the Rocky III color. So,
oh my goodness,
that was really fun. And then, you know, we all know Predator.
Yep.
What's really neat about this statue is the provenance. So there's a gentleman named Stan Winston who had a special effects studio.
Okay.
And he was behind like Terminator, Predator, Aliens. So he's very well known, and his partner, a gentleman named Steve Wang,
Okay.
was intimately involved in creating the Predator suit as we know it today.
Right.
And so this was a statue that he was involved in creating that's been long sold out. And if you look at it, this thing is probably well over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And everything you see, it's real metal. It's real fishnet
Okay.
where the Predator's legs are.
Right,
So,
yeah.
and it captures the ferocity of that hunter. I mean, that's probably the only thing that's ever made Arnold Schwarzenegger scared. you
Yeah,
know? So,
absolutely. There's just so much detail in these, and again, these to me these are works of art. They truly, truly are.
Thank you.
There's story behind it. There's works of art. There's craftsmanship. I love this, man. This is like a kid's dream, you know, to be able to. And I say kid. I feel like I'm the kid, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, man, I walk in and I'm just going, it's incredible. All right, so here we have a massive statue. These are a lot bigger than the ones over here. Tell me a little bit about this.
Sure. So I'm a huge Terminator fan,
Yeah.
as we talked about. And that same studio, Prime One, they released a half scale. So half scale means it's a ratio of half to real life.
Okay,
So if
makes
Arnold
sense.
Schwarzenegger is like 6'2",
Sure, it'd be 3 feet.
this is exactly that, plus a little bit more.
Yeah, okay.
So this is actually about 42 inches in height.
Okay.
So like you said, it's pretty big.
Okay.
And so the challenge here, Michael, was these shelves are deep.
Right,
They're
yeah.
36 inches deep. And I don't know quite how tall this is, but there's a lot of height. So
Sure.
to light this properly so that the light doesn't diffuse and dim when you get lower was
Right.
really hard. But
Yeah.
fortunately, the guys at Audio Advice, they created this setup where they had a very high color rendering index or a very high CRI. So this linear lighting
Right.
that's underneath the lip
Okay.
of this cabinet, so you can't really see it when
Right,
you're looking.
yeah, it's
but
kind of tucked away behind here.
it is.
Yep.
So it's aesthetically done nice, but on a functional level,
Yeah.
it projects the ideal amount of light to light up this whole area. So I was astounded because I asked him that question. I was like, how are you guys
Yeah, how are we
going
going
to
to make this look cool?
Yeah.
I've got these beautiful statues. I want to make sure that they're lit up properly.
Right, and not have dark spots. And they did a beautiful job. And so I kudos to them for figuring that out because it was beyond me. So that's how they knocked it out.
Absolutely incredible. And so you have a name that people call you. And I hear the name is the Poster King.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I think it'd be kind of cool to let's kind of take my audience through what that means, and maybe we could take them inside and show them a couple of the posters that you've got. How about that?
Absolutely.
All right, Kamal, this is a massive poster, but it's been signed. And so again, I know there's a story, and you became the Poster King. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I wanted to put that at the beginning of the video because this is so unique. And then of course, we're going to tour this entire home theater. But tell me about this poster and what it means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Michael, this movie, Way of the Dragon, now this is a French grand poster, so you're right about the size. It's 47 by 63 inches. I've always been fascinated by Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Just that tightly coiled intensity, the charisma, the philosophy. I mean, there's so much about this guy that is fascinating on every level. So this is an original poster from 1972.
Okay.
So it's well older than me.
Yeah.
It's 52 years old.
Wow.
I had it restored, which is why it looks as good as it does. Now, of course, Bruce Lee passed away a long time ago.
Yeah.
So the next best thing was I met Chuck Norris at a convention.
Yeah.
Every meme you hear about him is true. The guy's incredible.
Right.
He's a force of nature. So when he saw this poster and he saw Bruce on it, he said something to the effect of, "Oh, that's my friend."
Wow.
Because they had such a close relationship. So he wrote this to me, considering me a friend by saying all the best to friend Chuck Norris.
Oh
So
my goodness.
every time I walk into this theater, this is literally the first sight I see.
Yeah.
And it's meaningful on all levels to me.
Well, this is gorgeous. And you've got a collection of maybe 200
Yeah, a
posters,
couple-
maybe not this size.
Yeah, a couple of hundred posters. And, you know, initially when I started collecting, I collected all kinds of things. Some might call it hoarding. And then as my interest narrowed down, it really came to what we call theatrical release posters.
Okay.
So full-size posters,
Sure.
typically 27 by 40 inches and above.
Right.
I became known in the community as the poster king because a lot of people would collect things like photos. Because if you can imagine, if you're in front of a celebrity, you're at an event, you're at a premiere,
Yeah.
it's much easier to have 5 or 6 little photographs for them to sign than one
Absolutely.
big poster that you
Right.
got to roll out and could get damaged.
Yeah.
But for me, the aesthetics of a poster
Yeah.
are far grander than a picture.
Yeah.
And so I only collected posters. So as I started going to different events around the country and on Facebook, people started calling me the poster king, which
Right.
I thought was amusing.
That's awesome.
And
it's
that's
interesting
how it
how
kinda stuck.
the community sometimes they kind of tag us as what they
right.
see us, and that I think is endearing. Really, is
That's
what
right.
that is.
And then, Michael, the other part of that story is if you look on Facebook, there's hundreds of groups out there dedicated to autographs.
Right.
Because I had this specific focus on theatrical one-sheets
Okay.
that were signed,
Yeah.
I created the first group on Facebook exclusively for signed movie posters.
Awesome.
So it's called Autographed Movie Posters,
Okay.
affectionately called AMP for short.
Oh, I love it.
And so I started that from a club of one, which was me.
Absolutely.
And now we've got about 4,000 members in there. And, we discuss everything, like where do you go to get this stuff signed?
Yeah.
What markers do you use? Where a celebrity's going to be?
I love it.
And as it grew, celebrity agents joined the group.
Okay.
Some celebrities themselves. And so
Wow.
it's become a really fun community,
Sure.
right? And the common denominator is just a love of movies, a love of cinema. And I think that's the common language that myself or a member from Sweden or a member from Australia would speak. It's just a love for what
Yeah.
you see here.
And that crosses barriers of age and race and even location. Like you said, overseas, doesn't matter. We share this same passion. You guys are literally all around the world, and it's an incredible opportunity just to connect with like-minded people that share that same passion. And so I would love to, we're gonna pop out to another room and then we're coming right back here because you have a couple of them out there that have a story as well, some of these size posters.
Yeah, I would love to share that with you guys.
All right, Kamal, I know these are some special pieces, and I wanted you guys to see this before we get into the nitty-gritty of your theater. But tell me about this right here. What are we looking at? This is the Sixth Sense movie poster, theatrical. Tell me what's going on.
Sure. And I'm going to start, because some people probably don't know what this is. So this is in a material called Mylar.
Okay.
Mylar is a chemically inert plastic. And so the reason I store it in this is it takes these posters that, so you can imagine paper's degradable, right?
Yeah.
So pests, water damage, humidity, anything can destroy these posters. And so these are like, I would consider them works of art that I want to survive over time.
Yes.
So this Mylar is inert, so it will not interact with the paper or the ink. So it's the perfect way to store these.
Okay.
Where you can still view them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the inks that you'll get these things signed with, they're photoreactive, meaning if you expose them to sunlight or even just indoor lights like this, they'll fade over time.
Oh, no.
So then
So
the
I would've never
signatures,
thought of that.
Yeah, the signatures become ghosts. And so the best way to store these is I have a storage facility where I store them in the dark in these Mylar sleeves, and so they stay perfect.
In the dark.
As a day
See,
they
I
were
would have never
signed.
thought. That's awesome. But like you said, you want to be able to pass these down to generation,
Absolutely.
and share that story with them.
Absolutely. And
as
so
well.
you guys remember The Sixth Sense. I
Yeah.
think it was released in 1999 or somewhere around that time. And it was the first M. Night Shyamalan movie where this whole twist ending thing became a thing. But the reason this is so meaningful to me is, we all know that Bruce Willis was diagnosed with a form of dementia where he can't really speak or write or anything like that anymore. So as a testament to everything he achieved in his acting career, which he's, one of the most prolific and dynamic actors out there, to have something signed by him in what I would consider the perfect pen color in the right place is really hard to find now. And so a good friend of mine got this signed 21 years ago.
No way.
And I had been begging him for years to allow me to take it off of hands, and finally he was good with that. So that's how this ended up in my collection.
Oh, I love it. So Braveheart is a huge movie in the community, and we've got something here from Braveheart as well.
And so Braveheart for me has a personal significance, and you're going to laugh, Michael, because this is actually kind of funny. I met Mel Gibson in December of 2021 in England.
Okay.
I had a chance to ask him a couple of questions. In that Q&A, I said, Mel, there's probably one thing you've never heard anyone tell you. And he's like, what's that? I was like, I bet no one's ever told you that they had their first kiss to one of your movies.
Wow.
So when I was, I think Braveheart released in 1995,
Yeah.
so I was 13 years old.
Okay.
And so the movie had a special significance because that was my first kiss. So I told Mel that. And Mel, he had a ball with that.
He lost it.
He lost it. He was laughing. And I think his line to me was, well, I'm glad I could be a good wingman for you.
Oh,
it's like,
man,
no, you
such
were
a
great.
classic.
So, Braveheart is one of my favorite movies of all time. So much so that every year around Thanksgiving, my dad and I, we watch it.
Yeah.
Everything that you saw on screen, a man that sacrificed himself for a greater good, I think, again, goes into why movies mean so much to me. So this is just like the Rocky III that we talked about. This is a production use script.
Okay.
So somebody who was involved in making the movie, I guess this gentleman, Michael Gardner, because his name's on it.
Okay.
That was his script. And so a friend of mine got this signed for me in England where Mel Gibson signed it and wrote William Wallace in 2022. So it's one of those pieces of movie history I think that I feel very fortunate to be able to have and look at.
And I love that you're preserving this. And again, this is like, and part of why I wanted to come over here is because I want to preserve your story to my audience and share that.
Thank you.
And I definitely wanted to get this. And then we got one more over here, and then we'll head back in the theater room.
So Kill Bill, to me, was one of Quentin Tarantino's most dynamic and interesting movies. The reason why this poster is important to me is, you know, we all know that David Carradine passed away prematurely. This poster comes from a good friend of mine who is a prolific framer in Los Angeles. She was a little girl when David Carradine visited her and her father and signed this poster in front of her. So what's neat about this is he wrote one of the famous lines from the movie.
Okay.
When he's sitting across Uma Thurman, and then he drew a bullet.
Oh, no, I didn't even see
gun.
that. Oh, look at that.
And so what's neat about this is I got this poster. This was the only signature on it.
Right.
And thanks to some really good friends of mine who do in-person autographing, every signature was added thereafter. So Lucy Liu, Vivica A. Fox, Uma Thurman, who's the star, Quentin Tarantino. And this, I would venture to say, is the only signature of this gentleman that exists on a poster.
Wow.
It is Yuan Wu Ping, who's the fight choreographer.
Okay, no way.
For The Matrix, Kill Bill. I mean, the guy is rarely ever stateside. So this means so much to me simply because I love the movie, the story behind how David Carradine signed it, and the fact that it's got some really rare signatures. So,
man, I love that. And so one of the reasons why we build home theaters is to be able to bring in those memories from childhood, from early teenage years, and then of course all our current movies. And that's what you've created, is a space that you, your family and friends can go into the theater room, sit down and watch an incredible movie together. So how about we head back into the theater room and talk about all the different aspects of that.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
All right, Kamal, we're in your beautiful home theater. One thing I always love to do with my audience is tell us how big your room is so that you at home can kind of get an idea of the perspective here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So, Michael, it's about 23 and a half feet deep, 16 feet wide, and 11-foot tall ceilings.
Right, and so in this room, we're running a 7.2.4. So you've got 7 bed layer speakers, 2 subwoofers, and 4 Atmos speakers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then what kind of speakers are you running in here?
So we're running a Paradigm setup, and then it's an Anthem receiver.
Nice. We'll take a look at your rack, and it's not a massive rack, but I definitely want to take a look at that, and so we'll hit that in just a little bit.
Okay.
So here we're looking at this is a beautiful image. So we've got a Sony 7000 ES projector projecting on a 16:9 screen. And so one thing, when I built my home theater about 18 years ago, that was a big decision that I had to make. Do I go with a 16:9 screen? Do I go with a CinemaScope screen, 2.35 to 1, 2.4 to 1? So that was a decision that you had to make as well. So maybe tell us why you chose the 16:9.
It's actually a pretty interesting story, Michael. I'm glad you asked. So originally when I worked with Audio Advice and they asked me what kind of screen I wanted, by default it was 2.4.
Okay.
Because most modern movies are in that aspect ratio,
Correct.
and I told them that I don't really intend on watching football or live TV or anything like that. So for really a serious movie dedicated room, it should be 2.4.
Just seems right.
It seems right. Then I realized something. The older movies that I enjoyed watching, your classics like The Terminator, Godfather 1, Godfather 2, they're all 16:9.
Yeah.
So this is not the original screen that we had.
Yeah.
So I had a 2.4 screen, and then I realized when I watched The Terminator, you get these big pillar boxes on the side.
Correct.
And that ruined the experience for me. So I had a decision point. It's either I just stick with what I have and don't watch 16:9 movies, which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Or I think of a different solution. So I went back to Audio Advice and I told them what the problem was, that this is fine for the majority of the movies, but there are some movies that I really want to watch that I can't in the format I want to watch it, right? So then Audio Advice with Seymour Screen Excellence came up with a really elegant solution, which is something I didn't even know about, horizontal masking. So when you watch a 16:9 movie, which is the native aspect ratio of the screen, it fills the screen perfectly.
Right.
So if I watched The Terminator, it was exactly how it looked in 1984.
Right.
Which is great. Then a 2.4 movie, then I was like, all right, I'm going to have to live with horizontal bars on top and bottom.
Right.
So the solution that Audio Advice and Seymour came up with is horizontal masking.
Right.
So when you get these bars on top and bottom, there's a motorized shade that comes up from top and bottom that covers the black bars entirely.
Yeah.
So that transforms this 16:9 screen into a 2.4. But then there's another piece of this equation, and that's the Mad VR NV Extreme. Because as you can imagine, when you have a motorized shade, it may not come together entirely perfectly. You may have just a sliver of a bar. So what the Mad VR does is it's got a couple different techniques, as you know. You're the expert.
Well, I don't know about that, but there's a lot of different features in the Mad VR that can help with geometry, correction. It can do the nonlinear stretch. What you don't like the nonlinear stretch.
I don't, right.
So you're using this mostly for like tone mapping.
That's right.
Making the colors pop.
That's right.
And then, like I said, fixing some of those, the size of it.
Correct. And so with the Mad VR plus the Seymour horizontal masking screen, everything fits perfectly. Like black bars are a thing of the past, so no matter what the aspect ratio is, I can watch it exactly how the director intended you to see it.
Well, come on, maybe we can sit down and show the folks at home
I would love to
what
do
that would actually look like.
Sure. All right, let's fire something up.
All right, so here we're looking at your beautiful screen. You have electronic masking, and each movie has a different aspect ratio. So let's walk through maybe just a couple of scenarios of how your masking just provides a much better experience.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do so, Michael. So Top Gun Maverick is one of those movies where the aspect ratio changes depending on the scene.
Right.
So the nice thing with having the Mad VR is the processor handles all of those changes before we even see it.
Right.
So it maintains a constant image. So this movie, for the most part, was filmed in 16:9. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here. So you can see there, Michael, it fills the screen perfectly.
Right.
So, Michael, you can see here that we've got the gray bars on top and bottom.
Right.
Now we're going to apply the horizontal masking. And you can see the motorized shades coming up and down, and it takes those gray bars 100% away.
Nice.
So you're watching it exactly how it was intended. Now let's take it back down so you can see the motorized shutters in action the reverse way.
And so while you're doing that, one thing that I found out from Seymour is by adding the masking, yes, it does get rid of the gray bars, but the biggest thing is perceptually, our brains perceive more contrast. So the darker you can get the bottom and the top, or if you have side pillars or letterboxing, if you can mask those off and so you don't have gray bars, your image is going to pop that much more. So Kamal, there are different schools of thought on, do I add LED lighting to my room? Do I not? I absolutely love what you've done here and what Audio Advice has done. One thing I notice is that the LED lights are shining against your wall, and so they do not come and interfere, I guess, with the screen. So you don't get any whitewashing from the lights. But then up above on your ceiling, you've got a really, really beautiful star ceiling, and that was something that they installed as well, right?
That's right. And so I believe the manufacturer was Star Acoustics. I always like that idea of kind of that feeling where you're at a drive-in movie theater.
Yeah.
Sitting as a kid, seeing the stars above you. And the nice thing about the star ceiling is it gives you just the right amount of background light, so you're not sitting in a dark shell of a room
Sure.
with a bright image, but you're not having to flood other lights in to give you that contrast. And the stars have kind of a twinkling effect, which the kids love too. So it's just a really nice accent piece in general, and there are some acoustic properties too, so it helps overall with the sound containment and acoustic fidelity in the room.
All right, Kamal, so taking a look at your rack, one thing that you'll notice, guys, this isn't a tall rack. We don't have a ton of equipment, but we do have some nice equipment. So we got a PS5 up top, Maviar NV Extreme. We've got Control 4, controlling all the lighting, all of the components in the rack. Your networking switches and networking components below that. Some DSP, we've got triad amplifiers. Kaleidoscope, of course. And then all the way down at the bottom, we've got an Anthem MRX 1140 AVR. Well, Kamal, you have got an absolutely incredible room. You've got an incredible story, and I love what you've done with the space here. And so I'm hoping my audience will see some of this and go, man, I want to do something like this in my house. Maybe it's not as big, maybe it's not as elaborate, but you can do something in your space to be able to share that passion for movies, for music, with your friends, with your family members, and just celebrate the hobby of home theater.
And Michael, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come here. I've been a big fan of your YouTube channel for quite a while.
Thank you.
I've seen the videos you produce, and I love the conversations you have with people, how you get to know their motivations behind creating what they did. So the fact that my theater got graced by your presence is a huge honor for me. So I'm very happy that I got to meet you in person and to kind of give you a little bit of my story to add with all the other stories you've amassed over time.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. So I'm going to leave a link to your Facebook group down in the description. So if you guys are interested in the Poster King, you can check that out, and maybe how you get started into collecting the posters. And so I hope that this video just really provides inspiration to you, that you'll want to do something in your home. And the folks at Audio Advice are phenomenal. So definitely reach out to them if you need some help. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. God bless, and we'll catch you in the next video.